Raise your hand if you have ever been in a group and things just kind of start to unravel because it seems like you're making really bad decisions, or you make a decision that you think is good and then a few months later you get together and turns out it wasn't such a good decision. If that happened to you, you've probably experienced something called groupthink. Welcome to part 3 of the group communication video series. Here's my sign. We're on groupthink now. You can see I moved outside because it is a beautiful Pennsylvania sunshiny afternoon, and I just could not stand being cooped up inside anymore. So today we're going to talk about groupthink. Groupthink seems like something that would be a good thing, but in reality it can actually be a very bad thing. It actually is an absence of critical thinking that happens in groups. Sorry, my dog's out here playing with a stick. And obviously that's a bad thing, right? It means that groups are, in some cases, thinking too much alike, or in some cases, it's not so much that they're thinking alike, but that people in the group really don't want to express their views, so the group functions as though everybody's thinking alike. And there can be lots of reasons for that. We already talked about those, like dominance of a group member, or people who aren't really into participating, or something like that. And the results can be really disastrous, even deadly, depending on what the group is, right? So today we're going to talk about 5 aspects of groupthink that are bad, and 1 or 2 ways that you can correct problems with groupthink. There's really just one big way. If you're paying attention to your workbook, if you've got it at home, it's on page 68. You can follow along. If not, it's okay. I'm going to just test you basically on what I've said. All right, so the first problem with groupthink is something called overgeneralization. This happens when the group either thinks that they are all on the same page, and they kind of, you put blinders on and you don't really pay attention to things that are happening that might have an impact on your decision, and you just want to get it done. Most of the time it happens because of stress and time limitations, and you don't want to go back and change and redo work that you've already done. It can happen because of that, and it can certainly also happen because group members overestimate their chances of success. I've seen this lots of times. I know it happens on sports teams and other kinds of committees and things like that, where you think, yeah, we nailed it, we got it, we're going to win. You get yourself all pumped up, and then it doesn't turn out the way you thought. It can happen like that as well. So overgeneralization is really a problem in groups because of the groups not being able to develop ideas based on new information, new material. Like I said, everything unravels from there. Second problem with groupthink is something called an ad hominem attack. I hope this never happens to you, but I guarantee you're going to see it. It happens when it's a personal attack. So not like me disagreeing with your idea. It's a personal attack against you. Like I might start yelling at you. I might call you a name or something, something really bad. When somebody does this, it's really a sign of immaturity. It never makes you look good when it happens, but it's going to happen someday. I know that one time I had a job, and there was a woman, we found out later she had some mental problems, and she just took a dislike to me, and in the middle of a meeting started screaming at me, calling me a word, and saying a bunch of things that I ended up being able to verify just simply weren't true about what other people thought of me. So, it was really bad. It was very bad for me to go through it because it made me question myself. It hurt, and, it took me actually a couple of years before I found out that she had these other problems. After I left that workplace, she ended up doing that to other people as well. I was just her first target. Somehow that doesn't make it better, though. You always look bad if you do an ad hominem attack, so definitely guard against those. The next aspect of groupthink we're going to talk about is something called forming inappropriate causal relationships. That simply means that you convince yourself that one thing is causing another thing, and it isn't. And the whole group could be convinced that something is causing something else. So if you think about it, like a work problem or something like that, maybe you think, well, this is causing this, so the solution is this. And then you try it and everything fails. It's because you didn't really take time to get some good critical thinking in there and figure out what the real problem was. You just jump to an assumption of causality, and it never works. The next aspect of groupthink is, I gotta look at my notes, false dilemma. This is when you, in your mind, set up kind of a scenario where it's like, well, we either have to do this or this. And the best example I have of this actually was more interpersonal. It was between two friends of mine who were married at the time. They since got a divorce. And they had totally different fighting styles. In her family, they would like yell a lot, so she would just start screaming. She would throw things. I think she threw a remote at him one time. I saw her throw a spoon at him one time. I mean, she was really volatile. And his response would be that he would completely shut down and say nothing, which would make her even more angry. So they were not very compatible in that way. Well, ironically, they used to both call me up whenever they had a fight. They would each call me up and tell me their version of the fight. They didn't know that they were each of them doing that, and I never let on. But she said to me, I said to her one day, well, maybe you should back down on yelling at him. And she's like, well, at least that's better than not saying anything at all. So I said to her, but there's another choice. It's not just one or the other. There's a whole middle ground that you could try where you just calmly talk to each other. You don't have to yell. You don't really have to fight. You just say, this is what's bothering me. And then maybe, he could be committed to doing that as well and not clamming up. And I don't think it ever dawned on her that she had other options. So, like I said, their relationship did not last, and they did get a divorce. And I think this is one of the leading reasons why. So back to group communication. In your group, don't create this idea, well, we either have to do this or we have to do this. Most of the time, there's another solution to just about every problem. Finally, the final aspect of groupthink that you need to be aware of is a faulty analogy. This is when you convince yourself that something is like something else that's happened. For example, let's say there's a crisis at work, and it appears on the surface to be similar to something else that's happened at work. So you automatically just start using a plan that you used during the last crisis to solve the second crisis, but because you never really took the time to figure out what was going on, you just are wasting your time and making things worse. I'm actually seeing this at work right now, the university, and I'm not faulting anybody because we're all trying very hard to get things back together in this crisis. But certainly there have been a few times when administration has told us to do one thing because they think it's going to work, because that's what worked before, but everything's different now. So that problems are not getting solved quite as readily. And I'm sure everything will work out, but it's a symptom of groupthink. Well, finally, I wanted to let you know a few things for making groupthink better. The main thing is, if you're in a group, you want to appoint or act as devil's advocate. Groups really benefit from people who are not afraid to say, okay, wait, let's just think this through. On the search committee I'm on at my church, there are several of us who are like this. So if it seems like the group is too easily going in one direction, we say, okay, wait, let's just play that out. If we hire a person based on this, this, and this, what does it mean for this thing over here? And we've been able to make, I think, better decisions so far because we're doing that. People are not afraid to disagree with the group in a polite way. It doesn't have to be negative, right? And the group is always open to hear alternative viewpoints, and it's actually benefiting us. But if you're in a group and you're in a hurry, sometimes people don't want to do this, and it's really going to unravel everything if you don't. So that's my main piece of advice. Don't be afraid to speak your mind to your group. Don't be afraid to take a little bit of time to say, okay, if we do this, then what might happen as a result that we need to prepare for? And if you do those kinds of things, you should be able to avoid groupthink. Let's have a look at what Big Dan's doing over here. Yeah. He's pretty chill. I'm pretty chill too. Hope you are.